This is the Transcend in Life podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson, taking you from fear to freedom.
Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back to Transcend in Life. I'm really excited about today. I'm meeting with somebody that has been new to my life, but I've had a chance to spend some time with Doug Christie. He is a 14-year NBA veteran and now wears many hats in the world of sports. Co-owner of Triad Training Systems, Sacramento Kings TV Color analyst, radio host on KHTK Sports 1140, and trains athletes with mind, body, sport teaching philosophy. Doug now resides in Sacramento with his soulmate of 25 years, Jackie, and son Douglas, who attends college locally. During his off time, Christie enjoys golfing, fishing, music, and reading. Brother, I am so excited to have you. You are just one of the most kind, humble guys I know, man. Thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate you, Jam. It's an absolute pleasure. You and I had got a chance to get out on the links, and the interview actually started there. So it's good to be on the podcast, man.
Yeah, you're just an easy guy to chat with, man. I will say that for sure. So you lived literally this kid's dream. You played in the NBA for 14 years, man. That is amazing. How you got to just tell me the experience. And did you always know you were going to play in the NBA?
So, I went to a high school that is now rich in tradition in Seattle, Washington. It's called Rainier Beach High School. So in 1988, we won the first state title. And since then, Jamal Crawford has come through, I'm sure you know. He's won a couple. Nate Robinson has come through. He's won a couple. And it goes Kevin Porter Jr., who's now with the Cleveland Cavaliers. We've got a bunch of kids that have come out of there. But so initially, I was born and raised in Seattle, born in actually Bellevue, raised in the south end of Seattle, and basketball was always my dream. But I was a soccer player when my first sport a team sport. I was actually on a team, had the jersey, the whole deal was soccer, but I played basketball. And then the community center across the street from our house burned down. So they didn't have a basketball league. Finally, it built back up. They got the league, and I got in a lot of trouble as a kid. So my mom sent me to live with my father, who lived about an hour and a half south in a little town called Longview, Washington. So I lived with him for a couple of years, and then I moved back to Seattle. And when I got back, Rainier Beach was the number one team in the state, but we had some guys that were getting in trouble and stuff, get bounced out of the playoffs. And so the next year we come back, and that's my junior season. And, the coach is putting us through practice and we're acting up. So he pauses practice and he says, there's only one guy here, you guys. I know you guys got dreams. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. There's only one guy that might have a chance to make it to the NBA. And, we're like, who the hell is he about to say is what we were thinking. And he said my name, JM. And that was the first time that life had ever been spoken to my dream as a kid. And right then I knew that I was all in. All the eggs were in one basket, and that's what I wanted to do.
Wow. I to have somebody give you that affirmation, or even to supply that dream, that's awesome. So you go on to Pepperdine, obviously have an amazing career there, and then your NBA career starts. What is that experience like? I mean, I don't know, because I've never been a part of it. I think I know. I watch way too much basketball, but tell the casual fans that don't know everything that really goes into being a 14-year vet, because that's a long time.
It is. It's weird, because even when I was at Pepperdine, like Coach Tom Asbury, he brought in Bill Walton to talk to me one day, because all of a sudden he saw that, okay, this is probably a thing that is going to happen. But when you're sitting in the draft room, and a lot of different stuff had went on with me in the draft, and I had a knee issue as a junior and senior in college. So that, probably knocked me out of the top 5, definitely, for sure. Or the lottery, definitely. but I moved all the way down to 17. So you get drafted, and I got drafted by my hometown team, Seattle Supersonics, and there was a lot of bad blood and different things that went on. And I finally get traded to the Lakers, and to put on the jersey for the first time, JM, it's a dream come true. Like, the odds of a kid from inner city Seattle making it and doing the things that you do, when you see these kids put these uniforms on, it is, there's a lot of people that have been involved. It's a journey with injuries and a lot of different things. And then to be able to stay and find a way to succeed in the NBA, coming in, I was more of a scorer, different things. I could do so many different things on the floor, like, with the exception of probably center, I was point forward, but shooting guard. And then to run into a guy, for instance, like Pat Riley, after I'd got traded and got injured and surgery and different stuff, and, career was becoming rocky early on. And he's like, you need to find something that you can do really good if you want to stay in this league for a long time. And I actually wrote Pat a letter last year when I got the job with the Kings and we were in Miami, just saying thank you, because as a young player, you don't know. It's, maybe harsh advice at the time, but it was some of the best advice that I could get. I started making sure I was coming early to the gym. I was the last one out of the gym. I was just trying to hone my skills. So that's kind of the journey to bring it all the way full circle, and then to end up on a team like Sacramento and what I always call basketball nirvana. It was one hell of a journey, man.
Well, basketball nirvana, you guys were clearly, the creme de la creme, certainly in the West. And every year, for those of us that were Kings fans and watching, it was like, man, they're going to break through, and it's so close, and y'all almost put it together. It seems like every year. Yeah. That experience of getting so close, and obviously I talk about fear to failure in this podcast, and any athlete, they fail. We fail, and you did it on the professional level. What was your process when it came to failure? How did you overcome some of those failures as you talked about the rocky start in some of your career?
When I got to Toronto was it's a different place. They're very forward thinking. And I found Deepak Chopra, and he wrote a book called Way of the Wizard. And I ended up reading that book every single day before every single game. And it has lessons in it. And in one of the lessons, it talks about, in the ashes of disaster, can you find that pithy bit of positivity? And a lot of times those are the things that I would do, because you're right. Like even giving a sign to my wife, part of that was, I'd always tell people, it doesn't go good on the basketball floor all the time. So I needed something that I could find, that I could stabilize myself, that I know that this is good and I can build from there. But it is difficult as a professional athlete. And now we're seeing mental health and a lot of different things as we start to learn more about it. JM, the greatest gift that I was given was losing in Game 7 to the Lakers. I learned so much about myself. As painful as it was, it taught me a lot about preparation, about the fact that there's more. That's when I look at a guy like Kobe, like he turned over every single stone. And those are the moments that you might not want to experience, but they are absolutely necessary for the growth of an individual, and especially an athlete.
It's so interesting to hear that, because when those things happen, it doesn't feel like that's going to be the best thing that ever happened to you. But we hear this over and over, like this atrocity or this setback. And you literally, I remember this series and that game, and I didn't play even a second, and I can't imagine some of the pain that was. But you're literally telling me it was one of the best things that ever happened. That's really remarkable.
So JM, I'll take it. I can't remember it, to be honest with you, because there's a big blank, and the big blank actually is the game. I don't really recall the game. but I recall the two most powerful moments. The number one was walking or running onto the court at Arco Arena. It was as soon as my feet hit the court, tears started to roll down my face, and I was just like, wow. And from that point on, I was reeling. I could never catch myself. But as I was running through the layup lines, I saw myself as a little kid, all the different things that I had experienced that had led me to that point. For whatever reason in my life, I hadn't purged all that stuff. But that was the moment. For whatever reason, God wanted me to have the moment right then, and I experienced it, and I never could catch myself in that game. And it hurts because you get so close to something. Like, I feel like if I would have caught myself and been able to breathe and take that moment in, I could have performed at a level that would have helped us win. But then also walking off the floor, I didn't stop in the locker room. I just walked straight to my vehicle, and I had tears, and I couldn't drive. My assistant coach from high school, Glenn Smith, he was in town with myself and my wife, and he drove, and I just got in the car and just sat down. But in that reflection and looking back, and the things that I have gained from that have helped me to pay it forward when we talk about mind, body, sport, and training and all those things. It has helped me to talk about basketball, which is, I never thought I'd be a color commentator. I never thought I'd have a radio show. But, when people call in, when people talk to me, they're like, dude, you should be a coach. You should. And I think a lot of those things are part of the learning process that pain, unfortunately, in that moment helped me experience.
Yeah, it's cool to have somebody be as you really are. You get deep and you reflect on things. And you mentioned mind, body, soul, or sport. Excuse me, mind, body, soul is something I always talk about. I want to dive into that. Talk to me about mind, body, sport, because I love the concept. I want to hear more about it, because I think so many of us could glean a ton from that.
Well, so Bruce Lee is somebody who I studied. He's, for me, one of people that I look up to. And growing up in Seattle, and he's up from that area, and went to University of Washington and all of that. But watching him have an injury and then create himself into one of the most dynamic athletes, actors, and everything that we had ever seen, that led me to the body part, because I had issues with my body. I had plantar fasciitis. I had hurt my knee and different stuff. And I really started doing things that initially they said I'd only play 5 years in the NBA. Well, as you know, I ended up playing way longer than that. And I looked at the aspects of an athlete, and most athletes have two: body and sport. Freak athlete, they can do things with the ball, the bat, the golf club that others cannot do. But the mind aspect it's vastly overlooked, Jam. It dictates everything that we do. It dictates training. It dictates emotion. It dictates so many different things. So as I started to study it, in that day in Game 7, what was the one aspect of this athlete that was missing? It was my mind. And I write in journals and different stuff. So as I started writing it, it just kind of it formulated on its own. So I started to look at each aspect and create it like a wheel, and try to make each of them as smooth as possible. And when it goes over, there's no clunk. So as you look at the mind, whether it's meditation, whether it's conversation, whether it's talking about the game that you play and understanding it at a different level, to the body, which is trying to make it as pliable and flexible and strong for whatever said discipline that you are going to be participating in, and trying to make sure that it is everything that it can be, to the sport. And a lot of times I use Kobe as an example, because I tell young athletes, I say, Kobe was a 10th degree black belt. And as soon as you messed up, bang, you were going to feel it. And that is kind of how I go about training an athlete. They're very fundamental drills. And like I hear Eric Spoelstra with the Heat say, like, that culture isn't for everybody. This training isn't for everybody, because the dribbles, there are probably 6 to 8 basic fundamental dribbles, and then there's combination of all those dribbles. Well, you need to master each one of them and then work on combinations of each one of them paired with the footwork and all the different things that go together. And that, Jam, that goes with every discipline that there is, because the mind's going to be with you, the body's going to be with you, and then your discipline is whatever it is. And the willingness to go down the rabbit hole, how far are you willing to go to be the quote unquote best that you can be?
So you mentioned a couple that, especially with the mind, you mentioned you journal, you mentioned meditation. Are there other tangible things that everyday people could really be doing to support their mind so that they can perform at their optimal level at whatever they're doing, right? You know, executing, like you said, there's a combination of dribbles you can do, and they practice that as a professional basketball player. That's the things they would practice. But to get our minds right every single day, are there some other things that you can really help the audience with?
Yeah, I would say number one is breathing. Focus on your breathing. Make sure that you are present, because a lot of times the mind is powerful, man. It wanders. And I mean, even when I'm doing it, like today, I went to the chiropractor, for instance, and he has me in this machine, and I it's not a machine, it's actually some rubber bands, but they go around my neck, and then I push my arms out in front of me. And as I was doing it today, because so I put my arms down, I put them straight, and then I put them up. So there's 3 levels, 30 seconds, twice per one. And I said to myself, okay, I'm gonna reach out and I'm gonna flex my arms totally straight. And each time, JM, I found about 15 seconds, then I'd go, oh, I gotta straighten them back out. Like wherever my mind was going, it wasn't present. And so I concentrated, and to stay present at your task. And a lot of times breathing is involved in that, but that's like it's a super little thing, but you will find that if you're able to stay present at tasks for longer periods of time, you are going to improve at said task.
Yeah, the most recent study is 12 seconds is our attention span. So when you say 15
Wow.
seconds, it makes sense. It's like, dang. So I got to talk about the body. I mean, brother, you look like you could go out and play ball right now. You are clearly taking care of yourself. I don't know if you're playing weights similar to where you are when you were playing, but I mean, you literally look like you could be on the floor. What are you doing to stay in such great shape?
So, well, first of all, I try to eat right. And when I say eat right, like healthy live foods. Do I eat other stuff? Yeah, I like pizza. I like to get a cheesesteak sandwich. I don't eat red meat and pork, but chicken, turkey, and lots of seafood. But vitamins and understanding, getting sleep, getting rest, taking naps, little things like that, hydrating, making sure that I'm drinking water. But for me, when you talk about the triad training system, it's 3 pieces. There are rubber bands that we use to stay pliable and flexible. But the third thing is still in creation right now, and we're finishing it up. But the second thing is called the rebar, and it's spelled R3 bar, and it's rebar trainings. And so the guy who used to train me, JM, is I call him Yoda, Tim Manson in Seattle, Washington. He's trained a lot of the kids that have come from that area. He went to school at Washington State with my stepbrother William, and that's the first time I met him when I was like 15 or 16 years old. Well, I make it to the NBA. He starts training athletes, and he's what I would consider the best trainer in the world. So we're trying to figure out, and he's like, how do we train stability on a higher level? And out of that, he went and got some PVC pipe, and then he got rubber bands, and he created this incredible piece of equipment that trains for elite athletes, for weekend warriors, but for guys like myself, for like yourself, as you continue to age. But you don't want to beat the hell out of yourself, but you can beat the hell out of yourself, but at the same time, not hurt yourself. it's called the rebar, and it's very simple, but we've put it in mass production, and now it's actually a bar with end caps, and you hook the rubber bands to the bar and to your feet, and as soon as you put it over your head, you just have this aha moment, because it trains all the little intrinsic muscles in your spine and all the stabilizers, and it keeps me functional to be able to go play if I want to with my son on the weekends, play some basketball, or obviously go out and swing the golf club is something that I love to do. And I've beat my body pretty good over the years. I mean, I had to go get a little PRP shot in my wrist and my knee from, I have no cartilage in my wrist, but without these things that we've created and designed, I wouldn't function the way that you see me do. So it's a lifestyle, man, is what I tell a lot of people. It's like, some people are like, oh, I want to go on diet. Oh, I want to try this. Create a lifestyle that every day it's just how you live. It's what you do. And when that happens, you'll be better for it.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine 14 years pounding, and that's 14 years in the NBA. Add on top all the time you played and growing up, and all defensive player. I got to talk about it because that I'm guessing when Pat Riley said, "Hey, Doug, you got to find something." Was it that defensive prowess? What was he telling you, man? Because one of the better on-ball defenders and better front court defenders I remember seeing. I mean, just unbelievable.
So when I got to the New York Knicks, I got traded from the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Knicks were just coming off that OJ finals with the Houston Rockets. And they had already been to training camp, because when I was with the Lakers, I was still in training camp. Then I got traded, so I end up in New York. They're coming back from training camp. So the first time that I met Pat Riley, I go in his office and he just pretty much says, "Hey kid, you're not going to play for me. We just went through training camp. I got my guys. I know what I want. I know what I'm going to do. The best thing for you to do is work your butt off, find something that you can do that's going to help you stay in this league and master it." And I could play defense, but that wasn't my calling card. I never really thought of it that way. But being around Charles Oakley and Anthony Mason and Derek Harper and Patrick Ewing and the type of practices that we had, I learned so much about that end of the floor. Then not playing, one of the biggest benefits, Jay, was sitting on the end of the bench beside Herb Williams. And for some people who don't know, Herb Williams played in the NBA for a long time. He's been a coach, assistant coach. But the amount of knowledge as we sat and we would watch the games, and I'm sitting there and he's like, "Doug, watch John Starks. Look at how he's coming off that pick. Watch how he rolls. Look what Derry's forcing him to. He's using the sideline to help him guard the guy, and watch how many times he turns him. Why is he turning him now? He's turning him now because he wants to dig into his legs. Why is that? Because he's a jump shooter. So at the end of the game," and on and on. And I'm just like, wow. So, and like I said, I journal, so I wrote down a lot of that stuff. So by the time then I get traded to Toronto, and I meet an incredible guy in Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas that said, "Listen, you're going to pretty much play the whole game. Go out there, screw up, mess up. Don't look over here at the bench because you're not coming out. Figure it out. Try not to make the same mistake twice." And I was just like, okay, I could do that. And that's where I started to hone that part of it, as well as the whole game, because I play the whole game. I love offense. I love that side of it. So by the time I got to the Kings, it was a perfect storm in a lot of ways. We had offensive players. There were nights where I'd score 30 and 20 many times, and definitely, I averaged about 16 to 18 points. But for the most part, I handled the basketball, and then I would always guard the best player on the other end of the floor. So if it was a small forward, if it was a point guard, if it was any wing player, I'm like, I got him. And it just was something that I knew for our team was more important than me trying to go out and score points. My points would come, and we had a our style was such that the ball was shared. It wasn't a big deal. But what is going to be my biggest stamp on this team was my defensive ability to come in and slow guys down.
So I got to ask you, like you said, you took on their best player and you said, I got him. I think 1 to 3, you're like, anybody 1 to 3, I got them. Who was the hardest guy you ever had to guard? Because you mentioned some pretty amazing guys that you've been coached by, you've been around. I'm just curious, was there one guy that was like, damn, he's tough?
There were a couple, but the hardest was Michael Jordan, no question, because I just had never seen anything like it, and he played at both ends of the floor. So not only would you deal with him on the offensive end, you would look in front of you, and he would be down in a defensive stance like a cat. I obviously would be remiss not to talk about Kobe Bryant, who, first of all, sticking Kobe is one thing. But sticking Kobe and leaning toward Shaq is a total nother thing. That's I always said it would have been easier to stick Kobe if Shaq was not there. Now it would have probably been just as hard because he would have been more hyper aggressive. But the point is, you're leaning away from Kobe Bryant. Imagine that. That just is about as dumb as you can get. Allen Iverson is another one. He was, man. The answer was an absolute handful. But I would say that those 3 guys come to mind. Ray Allen, quick trigger. Those were the Seattle days. He was an incredible player as well. But Mike, to me, stands head and shoulders above those guys as far as trying to guard somebody that had mastered the game in a way that we had not seen it to that point.
Wow. It gives me goosebumps thinking about even looking across the floor and going, yeah, I got you. Like, you're talking about 2 and 3 of the greatest basketball players that have ever lived. That's just incredible. I want to talk about Seattle because I don't know what is the propensity of Seattle to produce amazing guards? It's like, it's a factory up there. Is that just you drink the water and it's like, all right, we're just going to be amazing point and 2 guards and look out, world.
Yeah, Michael Porter Jr. now in the playoffs with the Denver Nuggets. He went to Nathan Hale High School, which is in our league. He went to the wrong school, obviously. I can say that. It's something, first of all, about our neighborhood, because all the kids that I mentioned, even Brandon Roy, who went to the wrong high school as well. He went to Garfield, but we're talking about incredible talent. Jason Terry is from our area, wrong high school, Franklin High School. Isaiah Thomas, he's from Tacoma, close enough. It's an environment and a culture, man. It's highly competitive. We go after each other. If you look at all of those guys, they got a little crazy in them, and it's not in a bad way, but we're gonna come for you and we're gonna stand up. And I won't say a player's name, but when I had started my my summer league, there was a NBA player that came to play, and he got a little mad because the guys attacked him. Like, when you come there to play, these guys, we have good players that you might not have ever heard of, but they can play. Like, when I was younger, I was not the best kid in my neighborhood. It took me time to develop, and we would get on the 7 Rainier and the 142 and the 42, and we would ride buses and we would ride our bikes and we would go to different neighborhoods, and we would play at Othello Park and all these different places against grown men with alcohol on their breath. And you got to bring it, man. And I think that part of that is what you see when you see these guards, and you see the ability. Not to mention, it rains, so we enjoy staying in the gym. And if you stay in the gym, you get good at basketball.
The list you named off, and some people may not even remember Brandon Roy, and man, that kid was bad coming out of college. And there's so many good players. How is that transition to you doing the TV commentating, being on the radio? Does it replace being on the floor? You're really good at it. So you seem so gifted at it, but does it replace being on the floor? I guess is my question.
No, it doesn't. There's nothing, luckily, like Coach Luke Walton allows me to come to practice, and I'm so thankful because being at the gym, as soon as I walk in, if I got my suit on and I'm getting ready to call, I go stand on the floor, I pick up a ball and start dribbling. When I go to practice, I'm like edging closer to the floor, trying to rebound the basketball for the guys, because that is my thing, man. There's nothing. I enjoy golf, fishing. There's nothing that gives you the Jones like basketball gives you. So I thank you for the compliment about television, and that whole thing happened in a crazy way, but it's as close as I can get, obviously, without playing. And I enjoy it because a lot of times, Jim, it's like talking to my buddies and we're watching the game. That's kind of how I go about it. I wasn't taught in a school how to do it like a lot of these great announcers were. I've had great tutors from Grant Napier to Jerry Reynolds to G-Man to Jason Ross, a lot of different people. I know Mark Jones from ESPN. I've known him for a long time, and to be able to lean and learn and watch and suck in a lot of that information has been a true blessing. So, but nothing, Jam, let me tell you, nothing, even like that 300-yard drive that you just smack that baby and it's drawn in just perfectly. Nah, doesn't do it. Basketball, something different, man.
Well, I guess it gives me some solace to know that all these years of missing that's a real thing. And no matter what level you get to, you have this thirst for knowledge. It seems like you're constantly trying to improve yourself no matter what. Just like when we were on the golf course,
yeah,
you were, working on your swing. You're talking about even being mentored as being on the radio or on TV. Is that just something that naturally has been that way for you, or is that something that you've learned?
My grandma Lucille and my father, they would always say a hard head makes a soft ass, JM. And unfortunately, I was hard headed as a kid, and I love knowledge. My wife and I, we bought so many different books, man. We had a library. And some of them in storage, but we have books on books. And whether it's listening to them when I'm driving in the car, it's just something that I found, which is odd because if you knew me as a kid, I never liked to read. I was not a good student in school. It just kind of wasn't my thing. But now it's something that I find so many different aspects, and I love autobiographies and things like that because I find something about one of these great people that has been a journey, and I find how I can add a little something here or add a little something there to my life or my process of doing something that I find enriches it. And for me, it's incredible, man. I see that there's so much. The one thing is I know that I don't know anything, and that's probably the biggest bonus.
Well, you opened up Pandora's box by saying you got a lot of books. So one of my favorite questions to ask is, I'll give you up to 3 if you want, the most impactful book that you've read that really shaped your life, where you're like, man, people got to read this. It's amazing.
I would say starting with Deepak Chopra, The Way of the Wizard, that one for me, I mean, in so many different ways, Jam, it opened up my mind to a lot of it opened up my mind to go and grab more books and more knowledge. As I said, autobiographies. Obviously, the autobiography of Malcolm X is one of my favorites to watch. Somebody to go through the process that Malcolm went through and to come to the heights that he did. Currently, the one I'm reading right now is Marcus Garvey's autobiography. But there have been so many. I'm going to leave a lot out. I already know, but when I sit down and I try to find a book that, like autobiography, that might be a little odd, is Andre Agassi's Open. I don't know if you've ever read that, but I mean, like as a kid, I told you I didn't read. So this book is like, it's like this thick, man. I would have never, but as soon as I started reading it, I couldn't put it down. I mean, I read that thing like front to back, like probably, I don't know, it was really fast, like a couple days. I just couldn't, I just kept reading. But to watch someone and watch their story, a lot of times for me, there are new age books like Deepak and the type of things that he writes, but also autobiographies for me because I'm learning about people. People, we're the same. We're just, it doesn't matter, race, religion, all those different things. They go through something. They struggle. They work. They struggle again. They may have struggles with substance abuse and different things. It doesn't stop them. And that always isn't what we might consider on the positive scale. But when I talk to you about Game 7, it's similar. It's why at that moment did I learn so much? Why did I take in all of that information at that particular moment? And why do I go back to that moment when I'm learning new things that help build? That's the beauty of it, JM.
You're right on open how big that is, but the story and to really dive in, it's like, so I get, or the audience gets 30, 45 minutes of your time and we get to ask you things and we get a snippet, but those autobiographies, man, you get to dive in and really know, and he's so vulnerable and open. It's amazing.
That's the part, JM, the emotion of the human spirit. The ability is what I call is to open your coat and show somebody yourself. And the willingness to do that at moments where, I took a lot of criticism actually. A friend, you may know Aileen Voisin. She used to write for the Sacramento Bee, and she asked me after Game 7. I can't remember when it was. It might have been the beginning of the next year, but what I learned in that last play or during that game, and I said I was scared to death, and people were like, "Wow," but I'm giving you what I got. This is me, and I'm going to learn and I'm going to grow. And do you want me to say, oh, I was all these things that I wasn't? No, I wasn't. This was a moment that I hadn't experienced before. And in that moment, I experienced emotions. So when I look at a guy like Andre and he speaks about his father and he speaks about a machine that in the hot Nevada sun is put at an angle that is absolutely impossible and relentlessly balls are hit at him and he's having to hit them back, and the fact that he hates his sport, I'm just like, wow. And you were that good and you gave that much and people criticized you because of your hair and the way that you did, but you were probably asking for help and we didn't realize it. Like, those are the powerful moments that in autobiographies you find.
It's a shame if it doesn't fit someone's narrative, and you bare your soul. You say exactly. That's one thing. The moment I met you, every conversation, you are you, man. You're not. There's no agenda here. Here's Doug. I don't understand that, but it's out there, right? If you don't say what people want you to say, it doesn't fit their narrative. It's interesting.
One that's an example, JM, and it's a fashion example, and I was just talking to my wife about this, is I don't know if you've seen the most recent picture of Bill Belichick, and he has on this sweater and it's all holy and people are like criticizing him. And I was thinking as I was talking to her, I said, okay, so Bill Belichick's at this end of the spectrum and he's looking whatever you want to say it, but he's probably the greatest coach in history. Is there a way a coach is supposed to look? But then you go to the opposite end and Cam Newton is as on a three-piece suit. He's knotted up, but we want to criticize him. Where is the spectrum in the middle that everything is okay for everybody? Not to mention, we didn't know that Bill Belichick just lost his mom. And I mean, there's so many different layers to a person that we just kind of jump on, and it's unfortunate.
It is, man. And just like you said, this guy is the greatest coach of all time, arguably as an NFL, but he's got to look a certain way. And the beautiful thing about him, he's going to do it his way.
He doesn't care.
Yeah, he doesn't care at all. I love it. All right, I got to ask you my favorite question. What does freedom mean to you, brother?
Wow, that is a really good question. Um, Especially in these days and times, and being African American and coming where I've come from, freedom is a blank canvas. I guess would be my initial statement, meaning that you don't tell me the colors to put on it, you don't tell me the parameters of it. I have a blank canvas to be, to do whatever it is that I want. And hopefully your judgment or your critique or whatever that's yours and you're okay with that. And the freedom is the ability to do it. And hopefully people can be free of mind, meaning that when I'm free with my canvas, I don't have all these thoughts that make me do something on my canvas. I I am free to breathe, relax, and whatever it is, it is.
I love that. I love the answer, man. It's good. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you're like, man, you should have asked me this? I want to share this with you.
uh, not really, JM. I mean, we're here locally in Sacramento, so for anything, this is. Um, I always look at it as unfinished business for Kings fans, man. They are the best fans in the world. I've never experienced anything, JM, like running out of Arco Arena. It was the most cathartic, emotional response that I had ever witnessed. So, as you and I golf and we talk about King's times and all that different stuff, that's, you go through your life and you can have regrets and different things. And that's the one I want to see more than anything is a parade in front of Capitol Mall for these Kings fans, because they deserve it more than anybody.
Well, you continue to give back to this community, man. You certainly are a huge part of it, integral part of when that does happen. So personally, I just want to thank you for being here, always being that guy. And thank you so much for taking time, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, JM. Anytime, my friend. I look forward to getting back out on the golf course with you.
That sounds good, man. All right, you guys, until next time, go ahead. Let's Go Win. Check out the work-life balance. Take it. It's for free. I do the assessment once a month just to check in. In the meantime, transcending life. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to transcendentLifePodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Transcend in Life podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson, taking you from fear to freedom.